Totally. And, there's a lot of kind of basic scams out there and traps that maybe seem obvious to internet power users, but we got to remember that there's a lot of new trainers coming into Lunasia and a lot of folks that don't have the same decades of internet education. It is like a bit of an arms race, right? Like there's new scams and, phishing tactics coming out every day.
Exactly. And the funny thing too is that we're not just talking about what's going to happen on your Ronin wallet or your MetaMask wallet. There's also all the scams that come through Discord. And if you're new to using Discord because maybe you didn't play a lot of online games prior, or if you aren't in Discord or Twitter and you're only using Facebook and Reddit. So there's so many different channels where scams are happening, and just trying to make people aware of the best ways to avoid them is going to be crucial.
All right, quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to have Programmatically Pull on first. He's going to talk to us about some basics. We're going to pick his brain a little bit as the Sky Mavis support lead. Then we're going to hear from Axie Explained. He's going to give us some 101. We're going to talk about hardware wallets versus like software wallets, hot versus cold, and cover some basics for any new users out there. Then we're going to go a little bit deeper into the phishing storytelling. We have Al of Moistness who's going to be coming on. He had some issues with phishing. I guess, what was that, a couple months ago now? Time flies by here in the crypto world. But he'll be coming on to talk us through that. And then the final guest will be Freak, who created the popular third-party add-on that many of us use to breed and peruse the market to see breed counts and some Axie genetics stuff. So we'll have him as a closer to talk a little bit more technical and also just do some storytelling for us. So very much looking forward to our slew of guests and getting through some of this technical content. Dave, what do you say we bring on PP himself, Mr. Program
Freaks that could do the same thing.
Yeah, well, let's bring him in here. We've got the man himself. I've taken to calling you PP. This text I used has only capital letters, and my gosh, dude, it's taken up so much of the space. Welcome.
My name is a little obnoxious. Thank you. It's good to see everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how are we? How is the support life at Sky Mavis right now? How are our users doing? How's our average ticket time? Give me like the high level rundown of what's happening when it comes to support and security, because you're like the master of both universes in some ways, right?
It goes well. We've made a lot of progress on our response time. I think our response time I know our response time was our biggest priority in getting that down. We're now on average taking about 9 hours to respond to tickets that we do respond to. There is some tickets we're not responding to right now, and I can talk maybe more about some of those that we're actually building a new team to take care of those tickets for. But for the tickets that the queues that we are actively responding to, on average our response time is about 9 hours. So.
Okay, that's a big improvement though. How much, what percentage of the tickets, if you can share, are security related, of people either getting hacked or losing their assets or having some sort of a security concern? Is that most of the tickets, or are a lot of the tickets also just people asking questions and trying to navigate their onboarding experience?
Yeah, the biggest queue is the stolen Axies. That is our biggest, busiest queue. We get the most reports in there, and it is a few different, you could kind of break it down into subcategories from how these Axies get scammed, but that is definitely our biggest queue. And it's really sad because this queue could be prevented, and so we hope that talk shows like this will help get this information out there, because the queue should not be like that. These are preventable things that happen to people, entering your seed phase on a website and some of the other scams that we're going to go over later. But yeah, as of right now, this is our biggest queue, and so I actually think that that's going to be one of our top priorities. Once we have the response time consistent and down to a consistent level where we're happy with it. We also have some origin preparation we're going to do, but then I think that tackling this problem of how so many Axies are getting scammed will be our next top priority.
Totally.
I want to dive into that. What is the number one way that Axies are getting scammed? Is it a website phishing link? Is it a download tool that puts a virus onto a computer? Or, I know a lot of other people, they only have it on their phone potentially because there's now a Ronin mobile wallet. What is is there a number one that's actually causing those stolen Axies?
There's a top three. I would say they're maybe all tied for first. So the top three scams that we see right. Yeah, the top three scams that we're seeing are the websites that give you a seed phrase. So if you Google Ronin wallet or Ronin, set up my Ronin wallet, something like this, in some countries they'll run specific Google ads for go to this website to like get your Ronin wallet. And they'll click that ad, and that site is a copy and paste of our Ronin wallet. And it looks just like it, has all the same, it's exactly a copy and paste. And when you go through it, it will give you the seed phrase, just as if the Ronin wallet would give you the seed phrase, right? And then it redirects you to the extension and says, okay, now go ahead and install the Ronin wallet extension and then use that seed phrase we gave you. So then people use the seed phrase, but at the same time that it gave you that seed phrase, it also sent the free seed phrase to a scammer. And then they load that into a system. The system monitors that wallet for activity. And then it used to be that they would actually just, as soon as you bought like your first 3 Axies, they would just take the 3 Axies. But we're actually now seeing that these systems are waiting a little bit. They'll wait a month and be like, right, are these people going to add more into their positions? Are they going to grow those positions? And then, yeah, so a month, 2 months down the line, you're seeing these scammers get really patient and then take all the funds out of the wallet, which is very scary.
Is this like, forgive me if this analogy is rudimentary or too layman, but is this sort of the equivalent of those scanners that people would attach to ATMs? So when you put your card in, it's like sliding through their scanner and the ATM scanner. Like they put this funnel into the onboarding system. So they're like creating a seed phrase for you. It does actually work on Ronin, but they've also got a copy of it when you set it up because there was like a funnel at that extra layer of setup. Do I have it right? Is that like a...
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's scary.
Yeah, that's correct.
So
and it is very scary. And it's also really hard to find these cases because when you're creating the seed phrase, you believe that you're on the right website. You don't believe that you've gone to some malicious website.
Right.
So when
you
we're trying to
enter it anywhere, you just created it in the wrong spot. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Oof.
And so when we're going through the investigation, people are like, no, 100%, I've never gone to a phishing site. You know, I always use the official links. Like I've never typed it in anywhere. I only have it written down and, you know, it's under lock and key. And then it takes a long time. Usually how we find these cases is we go through their browser history and we go back to, you know, a month ago when they created it, we look at their browser history and then they realize, oh, I actually went to, you know, some website that's not actually the Ronin extension to create that seed phrase. And then it all becomes apparent. But to get to that answer, it takes a lot of time. You know, we kind of have to get through that initial, like, no, I've never done this. And then we're like, well, let's just check. Let's go through this. And then often that's what we'll find. And so that is I would say the most sneaky. And because they run the Google ads, those are the first links that pop up on top. And that's the first thing that someone sees when they Google Ronin wallet. But unfortunately, we don't see it all the time because we're kind of spread out throughout the world. So we might not be in the place that they are running those Google ads. And also, it's just we're not typically Googling Ronin wallet all the time. I know my links, so I have things bookmarked. I just follow those trusted links all the time. So it's a little hard to kind of see those campaigns until it's too late.
Yeah.
Do you know, is welcome.skymavis.com legitimate?
Yes, welcome.skymavis.com is legitimate. That is our onboarding portal. So this is the portal that we use to if we're having new people join. This is the portal that we'll send them because it walks you through step by step how to get everything you need in the order that you need them.
Yeah, it's actually really nice. I had not seen it. Obviously, I was onboarded before anything like this was created. And so I couldn't tell, again, not knowing what was legitimate versus what is not. It looks really good. So if it was a scam, it would have been really well set up because it makes you feel very comfortable. But yeah, if it actually is legitimate, it's a very, very easy, even has like 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly what to do. So kudos to building that. I don't know if that was on your team or someone else, but really well done.
This has been a long-term effort, and we haven't done a great job at actually marketing this because this has been out for a while. One of the nice parts is that it actually has all of our Discords listed. So at the very end, after you set up, it has all 4 of our official Discords listed. This website is great, but we haven't done a great job with marketing and sharing this link enough. So I think that we need to be better about like posting this on our socials. Like, hey, if you have friends or family that are joining, just give them this link. This is all they need to get all of the resources from the official links to set up Axie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Welcome.skymavis.com. We'll put it in the description of this video. I just showed it on stream. It is like a very straightforward, like this is the nuts and bolts. How do I get from point A to point B to get started with all the proper links? Then you're going to want to bookmark those links. I think that's also a great, bookmarks are your friend in this day and age. All right, well, let's keep moving right along. What else are the common traps that our users are falling into here?
Yeah, so the other two that often get people is the send so much of this token and we will send you back double or triple of that token. We see these reward scams in like the Twitch streams and in other places. And it's whenever you see this, it's a scam. We've actually even seen this in the real world too, like in with some like financial institutions and things like that. This scam dates back a long time, probably predates crypto. It's been going around for a while. Whenever there's a site that says, if you send us X amount, we will send you double back, it's a scam 100%. I've never seen a legitimate use case for this. If we wanted to reward trainers that had one of our tokens, we would just scan the blockchain and see who owns that token and then send them the reward. There's never a use case where this is legitimate, not one that I can think of. So anytime you see this, be very, very suspicious. I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, it's a scam.
Yeah. What's the old saying? If it seems too good to be true, it is, and that one is just too good to be true.
Oh yeah.
I'll send you send me money, and then I'll send you twice as much money back. I mean, it just that system could never work. There's some of these, if you stop and really think about it for a moment, and of course that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to catch you in a moment when you're not thinking about it with some sense of urgency that kind of hijacks your better decision-making skills. But if you think about it, like, why would anybody do that? Why would anybody just send you back double your money?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that too, though, is if they are able to make, like we've known, there's a lot of fake Axie Infinity Twitch streams, and there's also been some talk before about buybacks. So if you started, I could see that becoming a popular scam where it's like, hey, we're the Axie Infinity Twitch stream. We're gonna buy back your SLP at double the value and send you AXS or send you ETH or send you USDC. And so I would just say be cautious around that. Always make sure you read things very slowly to ensure it's spelled correctly. Spelling is usually the #1 sign of a scam, just from my experience.
I think that's a really good point. I think both of you guys made really good points. The artificial sense of urgency, if you find yourself in a position where you're like, I have to do this now, like if it's really difficult in the moment, but if you can try and stop and think about, why do they need this right now? Why is tomorrow not acceptable? They will place some terrible reason for why you have to do this now. And that kind of leads into the next scam. On our Discord, there's a ton of scammers, so you just have to be really vigilant in the Discord. We're trying our best to work with Discord to remove these accounts, but it's a tough fight. But if they weren't so successful, I think it would be an easier fight. So I think if you can work with us to help not reward these scammers, then the scammers would also disappear that way. But the most common one right now is these fake admins or fake support people. They will DM you and they will say, hey, I am from Axie Support and we found that you are multi-accounting. Please fill out a ticket at such and such site. And if you click it, it's a copy and paste of our current support site, so it looks very real. But when you submit the ticket, the last item in the ticket submission field is your secret recovery phrase, or the 12 English words that you're given when you create the wallet.
Of course.
And we will never ask for that. Yeah, the second that you give that to someone, you give them full control of your account. They can make any transactions to your account. They can take all your Axies, all your tokens, and there's nothing we can do to prevent that.
It's the skeleton key.
It is the skeleton key. So you have to be really vigilant. Anytime you see a website or a person ask you for that secret recovery phrase, those 12 English words, it's a scam 100%. Axie will never ask you for it. None of the support members will ever ask you for it. And this really applies to all crypto projects you're in, even outside of Axie. If anyone or any website asks for that, it is a scam.
And now the only time you would ever need it is if you were setting up a brand new device and you don't have a hardware wallet. If you have a hot wallet, like to set up a new MetaMask on a brand new computer, you would have to put your seed phrase into MetaMask that one time on the new device, correct? That is the one caveat there, where like that wallet, like MetaMask is a good example. If you have a hardware wallet, it's different. You don't have to actually put in the seed phrase. The hardware wallet does that for you. And if you lose the hardware wallet, then you would put your seed phrase into another hardware wallet. Those are like the two scenarios where, you know, hey, I'm importing my whole wallet into a new wallet. So I just always want to throw that caveat out there, because that is the point of the seed phrase, right? So you can restore your things if like your computer catches on fire or your house burns down or something like that. Obviously, you would use the seed phrase to set up your wallet again. I hope that's not confusing to people throwing that caveat out there, but yeah, no one should ever ask you for it. That is the one scenario, and that's you proactively saying, "Hey, I'm trying to set up my new wallet." You know, that's the only caveat. You're leading it. If anyone's asking you for it, that's a bad sign. It's like asking for your PIN code for the ATM. There's only one reason why they would want your PIN code there, bud.
And so those are the top 3. We do have on our support site, if you search for like how to keep your account secure, we actually have an article that goes through best practices. So I'd recommend everyone give that a read if you have some time. At the bottom, there's a section called common scams. And so we list out all these common scams that I've mentioned, plus we have some additional ones. Fake giveaway sites or award sites. We will always announce all of the giveaways that we're going to do on our Discord and on our Twitter, so you will know when it's happening. We'll give people plenty of time. Again, these sites will say you have 10 minutes left to, you know, fulfill your free Mystic Axie. It's not true. Like if we were to give away something like that, you'd have plenty of time. You would know ahead of time. Just like we're doing the releasing of Axies right now to go on an adventure. We publicized that. We publicized all the prizes. People knew they had an entire month to participate in this event. So plenty of time. It's well known. It's well publicized. If you just get a random link and it's like, here, this person wants to give you a Mystic Axie, it's too good to be true, as Yuri was saying earlier. Yeah. Just don't do it. Don't trick yourself into like.
We did have one tournament actually give away a Mystic Axie, and it was part of a sponsorship deal, and they wanted to make a really big splash. It was Galaxy, and I forget which sponsor it was, but they might do something like that again. So again, that's the caveats that make it so hard. It is too good to be true, except that 1 out of 100 times when it actually is a legit organization doing a legitimate giveaway. And they did. I remember because the Mystic got sold on the marketplace. So it was very public, the custody that was taking place there with that Mystic. But yeah, that's the other thing. If they're giving it away, they don't need much information from you, right? They don't need your seed phrase. They
don't need your seed phrase, yeah. I always like to be in the mindset that it's fake. Like, just assume it's fake.
Yes.
And then, as you guys were saying in the beginning, do your own research, and maybe you can come to the conclusion that it's real, but just start off thinking this is a scam, and you'll be much better off for it.
That's a great default starting place. We'll definitely get those links in the description of this video. Michael, we have a few people that are on the clock, so I definitely want to keep the show moving here. Any other kind of final thoughts or big scams that people should look out for that you want to throw out there?
No, I think we've covered them all. Thank you guys so much for this. And if you guys ever do have questions, feel free to submit a ticket or reach out to one of the moderators on Discord. We'd be happy to answer questions and just verify whether something is real or if it's not real.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. Keep fighting the good fight out there. All right, Dave, I'm going to move some overlays around and we're going to bring on Axie Explained next. But a good start here. I learned something, and that's a good feeling.
I learned some stuff too. That website is great. I don't know how I never knew about it. Just to onboard people. I mean, it really is a simple tool. So hopefully we'll get that promoted a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. That's a layup tweet right there. Just throw that out there. Those are the things when Jeff talks about, like, we have to constantly restate the mission. I think this is kind of what he means, you know, like we have to constantly be like directing people to the tools that we built because they're not always intuitive to find. But
right. And I will say I have a pretty good memory too. And I have the notifications on for Axie Infinity. I don't think I've ever seen that link dropped. Again, I'm usually pretty on top of it. Maybe I missed it in some crazy stuff.
A fair call out. Yeah. Take it easy, Dave. Take it easy. So we've got our buddy Axie Explained here. Axie Explained, I've forgotten what your real name is. Welcome to the show. Or is that intentional? Is this like part of the security lesson we're about to get? Have an alias.
Yeah, well, no, not really. It's okay to know my name. It's Henry. But yeah, thanks, Zari, for having me, and Dave. It's good to. I think it's the first time we've actually also met in this whole metaverse and everything. So it's good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Perfect. This is what Axie Fireside is all about, making these connections, bringing together some great minds. So maybe just give us a quick little intro of who you are, what you do. I know that you're an Axie content creator. Your name is Axie Explained, so that probably is a pretty good summary, but maybe give us a high level of some of the 101 that we're going to dive into before we get into Al and Freak with the technical stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, so I am Axie Explained, and I kind of started my journey like anyone else in Axie Infinity, but a few months back, just before one of the biggest booms they had, and I saw when I wanted to get started, it was actually quite difficult to get information, especially video information, right? Video content about how to start, because at that time you still needed to start with a MetaMask account. This was before Ronin Wallet was really there. So I thought, wow, okay, well, I'll figure it out, and then I can probably make more easy and digestible content. And that's where I got started in this whole Axie Infinity world, and it's been quite a journey. Now, today, I hope I can yet again live up to my name and explain some of the basics specifically in the crypto world, but also stuff that's obviously going to be quite relevant to Axie Infinity.
Yeah.
On wallets specifically, right? And how to set up wallets, how to do it securely. What are the common phrases out there? It's one of the things, especially if you're new, that you'll find is there's so many terms floating around. Like, what is a cold wallet? What's a hot wallet?
Yeah.
And it can be overwhelming sometimes.
Absolutely. All right, and we've got a little presentation here. I don't know if it's been linked to Dave. You might need to send it to him, or you could just listen along. But we may stop and interrupt you at various points. But let's go through it. Let's dive in. I'm excited for a little lecture here. Wallet 101 by Axie Explained.
Yeah, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to start talking about what you need to get started. Yeah. So I think you guys pretty much covered it, and it's actually very unintentional. We didn't talk about this beforehand, about common sense and a do-it-yourself, do your own research approach, right? It is absolutely essential, but I think you guys covered it, so I'm not going to go over it again. But yeah, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, right? Another thing that's highly, highly recommended is use your own personal device. That is the device that's connected to the internet, being your laptop, PC, or mobile phone. I would never trust a device at an internet cafe or anything like that. Some of this may sound very basic, but just don't do it. Don't do it. The next one is a secure email address. Now, a secure and trusted, safe email address is actually more accurate. But for most of these wallets, you might not actually need an email address to set up. But with crypto exchanges that you might want to get into, you might use it sometimes. And in general, your phishing attacks that will happen against you is going to be via your email address. So if I can give you one tip, is sometimes check, especially if you have a Google account, for example, you can go check which compromised sites your Gmail address is actually linked to. And you can, from there, it might be that someone got your password for your Gmail even. So if you especially have sensitive information storing on your email address, go check that out and make sure it's safe.
Yeah, your email is kind of like your root of all of it, right? That's the thing that you use to reset passwords, or like if you're locked out, it's kind of almost like your driver's license or your identity card on the internet. So that's the thing, like people are always lazy about duplicate passwords. Make sure your email at the very least has a super secure, super unique password. So if other stuff gets compromised, your root, your email, the base of your pyramid is still safe. That's like a huge that extends beyond just crypto, but it will also help keep you safe in the crypto space.
Yeah, I might need that compromised email site because I've lost 2 Baldnet accounts in the last 12 years because someone somehow in like China logged in, stole my account, changed the password, changed the email, and lost all my games I bought or whatever. So yeah, that's definitely a really good piece of advice I didn't think about.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that. It's actually, yeah, you can probably check it, but Google itself shows you. So if you just go through your Google settings and account settings, they will show you which sites have been compromised. So it's quite easy.
Nice. All right. So trusted exchanges and trusted wallet apps. I love the word trusted, but in this day and age, this is where we can leverage a little bit of centralization, I guess. We actually have some platforms now that are relatively trusted and have a pretty good amount of history to them.
Exactly. And I think one of the next things I'm going through is like just the basic steps of what it would look like when you set up a MetaMask wallet, which is one of the trusted wallets out there, a hot wallet as well, which I'll get to. And yet again, with using your common sense, you can see if it's actually a trusted wallet. And there's a few things you can see. This is like the starting site. As you've heard even with Ronin, sometimes you can get caught up in a copied MetaMask site. So just be careful. Always look at the address. Like Dave said, if there's a slight misspelling in the name in the address, that's a big hint. So make sure it's MetaMask and not MetaMask's email site, right?
I's and L's replaced with each other. Capital I looks a lot like a lowercase L. These sorts of things. This is where it all starts.
Exactly. And if you go to the next slide, one of the other things you can check is, since this is a Chrome extension, you can check the amount of downloads that it actually has. I know it seems to be quite small, but this one has over 10 million downloads, 10 million plus users.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's quite trusted by then, right? So these are the kind of things you can check out for when you do this.
Yeah. And the link there as well, that's another one. I remember seeing some fake like Sky Mavis ones where it was offered by and then made up Sky Mavis companies, like, SkyMavis1ltd.com. It's like, that's not that's not our website. We are SkyMavis.com. It's like you always want to check those as well and see if it is what you think it is, because there's room for trickery there.
Exactly. And okay, if you can go on to the next slide here. So the one after this one. So this is just, I downloaded the Chrome extension. Now I'm actually going to set up the wallet, right?
Okay.
So I'm just giving you an idea of how easy it is to actually do this. If you can go to the next slide quick. So usually you have two options. So one, you already have a wallet and you can import your secret recovery phrase or seed phrase. This is what Zari and Dave spoke about earlier. I'll cover that now because that's a very important thing. But with this example, I started a new wallet. So I clicked on yes, let's get set up. And I'll show you what are kind of the steps. But I'll also tell you how to securely store your secret recovery phrase. Some tips and tricks you can do to do that. It's actually quite easy.
Okay.
Cool. Next one is... okay, so no, this is just terms of agreement. And as you can see here, this is how you kind of also know something is trusted, right? They will tell you that we will never ask for, your address. We'll never collect these kind of things, right? And if you're really, really, very scared or you're very cautious, go read through the privacy policies that they have. And you can actually, yet again, do your own research. You can go deep into this. You can probably find it registered on different company sites. So yeah, just always check out for these kind of things.
None of these one things are foolproof, but these are all the kind of individual things that you want to look for. Like this is a green flag, so to speak. The opposite of a red flag. Seeing something like this is a good sign. It's like, okay, that's +1 for the trust. Let's see what the next step is. And you can kind of evaluate, I think, step by step.
Exactly. I think that's a good point. Always keep evaluating, right? Don't just be like, especially if you want it to be true, with those too good to be true things, it will happen that you get caught on the first thing, and then there's something shady on the next step, and you're like, okay, but I'll push through because I want it to be true. And they're like, okay, let's do that. And there'll be something shady again, and you're like, no, but I can win $10 million if I do this. No, always reassess and make sure that it's legit.
Which,
right?
You just did a great piece that I want to harp on, especially when you want it to be true. Then a huge scam part here to mention is in the world of crypto, one of the most lacking and hard to find thing, I guess I would say, is support. And so if you need support, the odds of you getting support quickly, and I'm saying like in an hour, 2 hours, is most likely not the case. So if you made a tweet, if you made a post, and you also you get a DM or someone offering help, 99.9% of the time, that is a scam. And so that's actually, I really liked how you said that. If you want it to be true, you're more likely to be caught off guard. And that's definitely true when you need support. And all of a sudden you get it, like, oh yeah, buddy, like let's whatever I got to do to get my Axies back or get my money or whatever, I'm gonna do it. And oftentimes too, it's just waiting because like it might just be the blockchain's locked up, or especially a good example is like if you're transferring funds from MetaMask to Ronin or vice versa, your funds are already there, they're moving as long as it's kind of hard to mess up.
And that's what they're looking
so someone
for.
then tries to help you. Yeah,
when you're in
100%.
this elevated state. Like I had one of my credit cards stolen when I was traveling in Malaysia, and I think it was stolen by the hotel clerk, and it's because I was panicking where my ride to the airport didn't show up. I was like, I don't know how to call a taxi. Can you call me a taxi? Oh my God, I'm gonna miss my flight. I'm panicking. And I just handed him my credit card. Pretty sure he took a picture of it or wrote down the credit card number. And then when I landed from my flight, I saw there were all these charges and stuff. And looking back, I don't think that guy was really like a cunning thief. More so, he just seized the opportunity because he saw that I was a foreigner that was way too trusting with his credit card. And looking back, it's just like, yep, I had been partying the night before. I didn't sleep well. I was not in a good state. And that made me more of a target because this person could read that I was vulnerable. So like broadcasting, guys, I'm freaking out. I lost access to my wallet. That is like kind of putting out the bat signal for scammers to come and try to offer their help.
Help. Exactly.
So, yeah.
I've seen it so much. I've seen it so many times where people are like, oh, please help me. And you can smell a scam like a mile away once you start looking for it. But I can understand if you're in a desperate situation, you might be a bit more blind to things. So always reassess.
All right, so let's go back to MetaMask here. The setup process. We went off topic, but I like it. So it does ask you to set up a password. That's where we left off.
Yeah. As always, passwords are important. Passwords, just pick one that you can really remember. The nice kind of cool thing about these wallets is even if they have your password, they actually can't really do much unless they have your seed phrase, your recovery phrase. And that's what, on the one hand, makes these so secure. But on the other hand, there's also a massive security risk because if they have your seed phrase, they have everything. So just focus on creating a password. As per usual, follow the good guidelines of, a small uppercase letter, a small letter, a lowercase letter, they call it, a number, a special character, and create something you can remember, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk about the actual seed phrases. We've kind of renamed these secret recovery phrase so that the name is obvious what its important is, but its original name is the seed phrase. And this is that 12-word sacred master key, skeleton key, whatever you want to call it, that like this is it. This is what allows you to have the back door into your own wallet if you lose access. But if you give it to someone else, you're just handing them that loaded weapon. This is the thing. This is, even safety deposit boxes scare me with something like this,
Yeah, exactly. Like, even that way, so it's a 12-word phrase there's so many iterations that's basically impossible to guess. That's why they've created it this way, right? But you need to keep it safe. And there are a few tips and tricks they give in general about how to securely save this security recovery phrase. One of them is in a password manager. Google itself has a password manager. Yet again, as soon as it's something that's digitally stored, once they have access to that piece of digital software, let's say it's your Google account, you're at risk again. So that's why you don't necessarily want a digital way to store it. It might not always be the most secure thing. That's why they actually recommend more physical places to store it. So one is, write this recovery phrase down on a piece of paper, right? It's a very simple thing. We're going back to like medieval times, but write it down and then securely store that piece of paper, right? So either in a bank vault, in a safe deposit box. Yet again, if someone gets access to that and they know what they're looking for, yet again, you're in trouble. But you have to find some place, even if it's a false floorboard under your attic or something, but write it down and maybe even store it in multiple places. The worst thing will also be if you write it down once and your attic or your basement floods and that piece of paper is gone. So that's why they also recommend write it down on multiple pieces of paper, all stored in secure
That's
spaces.
the balance, right? Because you don't want to have single points of failure where there's only one copy because a tornado could come and that building's gone, right? Crazy things like that can happen. But then you don't want to have it in too many places where it's like, okay, somebody found it, or grandpa stumbled onto this and then, showed it to somebody he didn't know what he was looking at. And then also, like, I have the fire plates now where you carve your seed phrase into a piece of metal, and then that way, if there's fire or something, safe from a flood. Yeah, the seed phrase fire plates, you can buy them online. So far, so good. It hurts the wrist a little, but it's pretty resilient to the elements.
I've actually wanted to test that one, and I was sitting in an interesting situation where it's both the trust exercise as well, but I actually have a business partner. So most of our digital assets we actually share, although it's each in our different accounts. So one of the things we actually did, and I don't know if it's a recommended method, but we actually have it in place that we share everything 50-50. So I wrote my seed phrase, I gave him a copy, he wrote his seed phrase and gave me a copy. And that's how we have it.
Hell of a trust system there.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the ways. I mean, especially if you maybe have a contract in place against each other, it's something you could do. But I don't know, if there's someone you trust in life, your wife, perhaps, I don't know. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend that method. But just have it in multiple places, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. Yeah,
absolutely.
This is what it looks like. So when you get a secret recovery phrase, it is so intense that you actually have to click somewhere for it to reveal. And this is actually another thing I wanted to make a point of that I never get around is have good anti-virus software on your PC, because one of the things people can actually do is they can remotely monitor you sometimes if you have shady stuff installed on your PC. So you might be doing this whole, step by step, and they're actually monitoring and seeing everything you're seeing. And when you click there to show it, they actually get it. So that's how intense it could be sometimes. So just be careful in general about stuff like that. Okay.
Awesome.
Next, I think a good topic to get to is hot wallets versus cold wallets, because I think it might be very scary, everything we discussed here about all these different ways that they could get to you, especially through the internet. But don't be too scared. There's ways that you can save yourself, right? But to get to that, we first need to discuss just what's the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet. A hot wallet is something that is always connected to the internet, while your cold wallets are not. Okay? So cold wallets are considered a more secure storage for your digital assets. And it's very much recommended. I'll get into pure examples now. But when you have a hot wallet, usually just sit with a very low amount of your digital assets there. If you have a lot, if you're a whale, if you build yourself up to being worth a few $1 million or something, do not have that all in a MetaMask wallet. Set 5% there and put other 95% in a cold wallet, which is offline, which takes more effort to access, but just do it when you need it, because otherwise if you get rugged or if they do get access to your wallet,
and it's not to say that hot wallets are like inherently like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything. But it's just recognizing that by nature of your seed phrase being in something digital, like you're storing it in a digital space, it's a little bit more vulnerable. And the cold wallets, like you buy like a Trezor, you buy it. When you get it, it shows you the seed phrase on the Trezor. You write it down, and then that's it. That little Trezor, and that piece of paper are the only three sources that have ever seen that seed phrase. And that's a totally different level of like disconnected. Nobody can hack that through digital means, and that's really powerful.
And that's what they want to get to, right? Cold wallets should basically be disconnected to the internet, so you can't get hacked that way. But hot wallets have their uses, obviously. These are for your everyday use. Like if you're a trader, you can't be constantly... It also takes a bit longer to send a transaction from a cold wallet over to a website you want, or to a hot wallet and then to a cold wallet. So if you're a trader, for example, you're going to have a hot wallet and you're going to do most of your trading on that. But yeah, get a cold wallet, which is, for example, a hardware wallet like Trezor. I think that's one specifically that the Sky Mavis team believes in, and they've actually promoted as well. And
That works
when
with our
we did
blockchain. Yeah, that's a big plus. That's
there we go. There we go. That works then, yeah. When we did our research, it is one of the top tier ones on the market as far as we could have seen. So yeah, buy it if you're really getting to a point where quote unquote a considerable part of your livelihood is in crypto assets. I would say, you know, buckle up and get a hardware wallet and just make sure you're safe there, right? Hardware wallets, yeah. Yeah, and hardware wallets they're usually like, they look like a USB stick basically. I didn't get a picture for us here, but yeah, they store the wallet private keys, and basically, like we discussed, they're making it unreachable for hackers because it's offline, it's somewhere else. And then you can just switch between those. You can send from your hardware wallet, which needs to be plugged into your PC, back to your hot wallet, which is a MetaMask account, for example, back and forth as you need it. And that's another way to stay secure.
Mr. Axie Explained, that was a fantastic rundown. And I feel bad we had to rush you through it a little bit because our next guest that's coming on is on a little bit of a clock, and I want to make sure he has plenty of time to share his stories with us. So, Dave, I don't know if you had any final thoughts or questions, but that was a fantastic overview of like some hardware wallet 101 stuff.
No, it was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, and I'm gonna stick around. I want to see what else is out there.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll throw a link to your YouTube in the description, of course. A lot of great educational content there. Check out Axie Explained on YouTube and the other socials. Dave, we're making some big progress here, and I'm excited, really excited to jump to this next one because this is amazing. I just heard his voice for the first time today. That's how mysterious this individual is to me. This is awesome. Let's go right into it. We've got Al of Moistness. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you sound fantastic. Coming in loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us here. And I know you're a little bit tight on time, so I don't want to take any away. I really want to hear about your pinch of your history. Introduce yourself for people that don't know you, and then certainly feel free to dive into your recent anecdote with the phishing incident, because you're one of the most high-profile people on my radar. I was like, wow, if it can happen to him, nobody's safe, especially not me.
Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, to give a bit of context, back in December, my account got compromised. It wasn't, you could say it was a phishing scam, but it really wasn't. Long story short, I was just with some, friends playing, and they don't have any history of me being in crypto. So I keep this part of my life very secret. And I know one of my friends, has a history of always going into some very shady websites, and he always sometimes sends weird links. And I'm aware of that. And, I was guard off, I was playing, and click on the link, download some file, I'll execute it. And I thought it was an MP4, but it clearly wasn't, because as soon as it executed, my computer detected that it was a Trojan virus. If you guys want to put like a link of my Medium, I actually don't have it here, but inside basically I explain what the Trojan is, and it was quite a nasty one, scanning a lot of some information, password manager stuff and everything. And when it happened, I wasn't too, I didn't really bother, because like, oh yeah, my computer got it, Wind Defender got it, it's all good. A few hours later, I started having some DMs saying, why are you selling your NFTs super cheap? And this is like, I'm not selling anything. And it clicked like literally instantly. Yeah, I'm getting hacked. My account got compromised. The guy was charging my cyberconks. Those are quite hot NFTs right now. And he was just selling them like they were pieces of cake. And I just tried everything I could to mitigate the damage. So first, what I did was, secure the most valuable assets. There were so many offers available that I don't think he kind of like went over and knew what was the most expensive NFTs. So I got them out of the way, but I still had many things to move out. And eventually I just thought to myself, yeah, I can't do this on my own. What can I do? And I thought, yeah, maybe I should share my private key with people. That sounds extremely weird and crazy, but at the same time, I'd rather have some people I know help me. And, that's what I did. I leaked my private key. They helped, very nice. And overall, I think I managed to save probably 80% or 90% of the value of what was available to be compromised. So at least I managed to save a lot of things.
So for those that maybe didn't follow exactly what that means, basically you came to the conclusion that it's an arms race of how do we get stuff off this compromised account. So you gave access to people that you relatively trust, like internet stranger friends. Like, hey, I'd rather you have my stuff than this hacker. So like, take whatever you can. If you want to give it back to me later, awesome. If not, well, better you than this asshole, right? Is that?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. That was exactly it. And you were talking about how in this decentralized world, reputation and trust is kind of a weird thing to accept. But at the same time, it just makes so much sense. When there is so much decentralization, there is always going to be human interactions between people. That thing you will never ever take away from any system. And in those specific interactions, what helps you distinguish the good from the bad is trust and reputation. And those folks that I trusted, I've trusted them because I thought, I knew them for many years, and it just made sense to send it to them. And eventually I got everything back, and the support of the community was overwhelming, which is amazing. But it was overall a very bad experience, and I want to kind of like extend to this a bit later. I want to talk, of course, about security things and practices you should try to do in my scenario. So basically, once the whole thing happened and everything kind of settled, things that I kind of found what happened was I suspect that the virus checked my password manager. I use Google Manager. You guys told about it. Ever since now, I'm using something else. I'm using Bitwarden personally. I think it's very good. The master password for that Bitwarden is in my head and on a written piece of paper that I gave to my parents. So, this is like this thing is not possible to fetch anymore outside of anything really. And I think that back then, my computer that got compromised didn't have any password to get into the session. And Google Password Manager uses the session's password to access in. Since there was no password, the guy had access to basically all my passwords from everything I ever stored on Google Password. And I had kept my MetaMask password inside. And eventually, I think maybe after a few hours after he did all his things, he just got the private key and I had access to all the accounts on my seed phrase as well as imported keys. Shame. That's how I think he did it. So what I learned from this is that one, it was said already. Everything that is valuable, keep it in a hardware wallet. Trezor, Ledger. I know you guys are very big on Trezor. Ledger is ideally as fine. I've never had any issues. So those are the two I know that are really good. I personally know some of the people that work in Ledger, so that's why I'm okay mentioning it.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it aside it doesn't work from Axie. That's the only problem. And that's not Ledger's fault necessarily even. It's,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as a wallet, it's fine. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, Trezor is good for Axie, but Ledger is as good security-wise.
Totally.
But there's probably better, I don't know. But so that's the first one. The second is, if by any chance you were to be in this same situation as I am, having a group of friends you can trust with helping you in this situation definitely helps. And there's always ideals of how things should be done. Maybe your friends should be spread out all over the world so that there's at least one that's online. There's all the things that can be done, but that's very, very edge case, scenario. If by preventing this, never click on shady links and don't execute things that you don't understand. I fell into it. Shit happens. But today, one thing I would do, and that's what I do now, is that the machine that I use to operate any on-chain transactions, broadcasting, all those things, this is a dedicated computer just for this. I personally only work and execute transactions on my laptop that I use for work. If you start to have assets that are above the thousands of dollars, I don't see why it should be hard for people to think, I could get a Chromebook or a MacBook, that costs less than $1,000 to secure 10 times the value. People say when you buy a bike, having a lock that's like 10 or 20% the value of the bike makes sense. Why not do the same with your NFT and crypto assets, except that it's a static price of $80 or $500 for the Chromebook, and if you have 10k, 50k, 100k worth of assets, there you go. You just protected yourself from having so much issues. So this is probably one of the biggest ones. Like everyone should really consider at some point if they have a lot of assets to get a new computer. Yeah. The last thing I wanted to mention is, as I said, you said earlier, Ziori, if I got hacked, how could you feel safe? And that's true. And the worst out of this is I have two anecdotes I want to share with you guys that are extremely scary, and it shows that literally no one is safe. And that's why you need to be very precautious about many things. So the first one I want to mention is the Armor hack that happened back in 2021, I think. So Armor was like an insurance project that came out, and basically what happened is that the founder of Armor just wanted to do casual transactions on his laptop. He used a ledger. He used a hardware wallet. I don't know what he used. And basically he executed the transaction. But what happened was that a hacker got into his computer, injected malicious MetaMask code. And what happened was he thought he was doing just an NFT transfer of some sort. But what happened is that this malicious MetaMask on the front end was like, yeah, you're doing your transfer. But on the back end, he asked the Ledger wallet to approve to transfer Armor tokens to the compromise to the hacker. And on Ledger, he could have seen that the contract he was interacting with was not the one he was expecting. But you don't see those things, and this is where you need to be sometimes very precautious and make sure that the address you're interacting with is this one you're expecting. And how did he get hacked? We don't know. People are so good about infecting and getting into people's laptops that it's extremely weird. The second angle I was aware is very recently someone else got hacked. They lost worse than me. And they were extremely secure. They had 2FA. They did all the practices that you guys are talking about, except that he just doesn't know. He said maybe there's been something that has happened within the 5 years. So he doesn't know. Maybe he's been infected for 5 years, and the guy decided to pull the trigger right now. And he didn't click a link. He didn't go into all those shady websites. And in those two anecdotes, the only thing that I found that is the recurring factor is that there were both known figures. So founder of Armor, CEO, whatever you call it, big following, highly susceptible to be attacked. Second guy that got hacked was the CEO of another company. Those guys are big. And this shows like, as even with all the security, you need to really think about all those things. Imagine if you're like a very famous person. How would you do it? And again, going back to this dedicated laptops, it's easier because they're mostly offline. How can you snipe someone that does things a lot offline? There's all those things that you're not even aware of. Maybe there's a loop in Twitter that can allow you to sniff the IP address of someone else. Maybe not. But my point is, people are always trying to sniff out all those things. And my case, I got hacked. I got compromised in the most obvious way. However, those people there that I mentioned, those two anecdotes, those two sad, souls, they weren't doing shady things, and they got infected, they got targeted, and they got hacked. And so I don't want to try to, put a lot of shady and like freeze your spines out there and think, because it's rare that it happens, but you have to think about all those things. We're living in a world where crypto is amazing. Yeah, but it's the same as hiding your money under your mattress. You got to make sure that your house is extremely secure for this. And it is super hard to think about those things, like, because it can happen to anyone literally. Like this, the moment you start to become an easy target, because you have a lot of following, you're exposing yourself a lot more. There's maybe that little thing that exposes you in a way that the hacker can I can figure out so much about him, and there you go. So it's very scary. But as I said, dedicated machines, making sure that you kind of obscure your broadcasting, transaction, all those things. As long as you lay low, usually you will be fine. But it is a scary place, and it's definitely something that people need to definitely think about the moment that they have a lot of assets and more money than they've ever thought they would have.
Yeah, some anonymity can definitely be a good thing. Even just having things spread across different wallets, or using exchanges to, you can send it to an exchange and use that exchange to send it to a fresh wallet, and then that makes it harder for people just trying to track down all your assets to look at. But as this stuff goes mainstream, I love that you mentioned physical security. Like, make sure your house has a lock on it. Make sure you have like a safe in your house, or it's hidden somewhere. Like, don't just leave your seed phrase out on the counter because somebody could break in and see it or take it. Like, that kind of stuff sounds really obscure and stupid right now. But 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when this stuff's more and more mainstream, I just saw like the ransomware, the amount of Bitcoin and stuff taken from ransomware was like an insane amount in 2021, and the projection is it's going to keep growing. It's like, as that incentive keeps growing, more and more bad actors will understand what a seed phrase is, or what a private key is, and how to find it, how to look for it.
Yeah, exactly. It is tough. You have to be both secure on the in real life, aspect, as well as on the virtual. As you said, saves, all those things are key, and also making sure that you always keep your footprints on the net as invisible as possible, as I said. And it's hard for people that have a big following. Like, for example, Zero, you're probably a bigger target than I am.
I was
I'm not
out
as
there
big as
before
you
I
are.
started crypto, man. There's no taking it back. Everybody knows my name, my face, my birthday. I just threw it out there like, who cares? What are they going to do with this? And now I'm like petrified. It's hard. I'm jealous of folks like yourself that had the good sense to, stay somewhat anonymous out there. Very smart.
Yeah. If you want, we can definitely go through a chat where we talk about anonymity and why should there be anonymity, why there shouldn't be. There's pros and cons on both sides. But if you definitely want to go through that, I have a mind of my own very, very well, defined. So if that's something you're interested into, I'm happy to go into that, thing, because it's also very interesting to explore that path.
Yeah, I would love to hear that personally, because I'm in a similar boat where I'm very doxxed, kind of ever since I started. But the funny thing is we talk about putting things in different wallets and kind of hiding some of your transactions, yet a lot of the sales pitch kind of around NFTs is around that digital flex and being able to show off your assets or show off your skins in a game you're going to have, or the art you've collected into your, if you're going to have like a pod showing off all your stuff. So I really do wonder how that ends up kind of transacting in the future. Like, I think to the question to you, Al, is I know there's one company kind of working on it more for event access. Do you think that there will be, I personally do, a lot of new companies that pop up that instead of actually logging in with your wallet where it's a connect wallet, they're kind of a second layer to say, okay, you're not connecting to anything, but we're verifying, like, we have your Twitter logged in, we can then pull your OpenSea to verify that this Twitter is with that OpenSea, and now we know this person is this, but you're logging in with party 3 kind of thing, to just be able to verify all your assets to other games, entities, whatever, instead of having to actually hit this connect wallet button, because everyone's like, oh, it's just like, instead of signing with Gmail, just push the button, connect wallet, connect Ronin. Do we think that's going to happen more in the future?
It's possibly. It's a hard one because, as you said, so the way I understand this is like you what you're saying is that services that allows you to connect an address, like
well, just for like
address to Twitter, to OpenSea, all those things. Is that what you meant?
I think it's like trying to make more
it's kind
layers,
of like
right? It's like putting your identity into
like
an internet condom, so you have this like layer that interacts with the protocols instead of your actual direct wallet. Do I have that right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So it's almost like how everyone's saying right now, just connect with Google, and everyone's like, oh, excited because you can hit just connect your wallet, which sounds great in theory, but wouldn't it be better if there was actually like a third party that's just kind of like, hey, we'll interact for you, so in case there's a scam, we'll catch the scam and vet the contract so that there isn't anything there. Like, I would easily pay a 3% charge on any transaction to have this other company do it all for me first, and then send me the NFT or send me whatever, the access to log in or whatever.
Right, but so does that mean that if the company that does get scammed, I mean, they insure you type of thing?
Yeah, kind of like, but they're the ones actually transacting first. Like, it's almost like they're the secondary wallet.
I'm not. It's not that I'm not against it, but I personally wouldn't be using it because it defeats the purpose of blockchain. The whole purpose of blockchain is to remove all those middlemen. So I'm not really for it. Maybe some people will like it, sure, but as I said, if you're good about your security, what you should be, like people learn how to live, being an adult is hard, but people learn over their life. People should include the security thing to become part of their daily lives. People know that you shouldn't cross the road when there's like high-speed cars. They don't cross the road. Same way should be done with this. So I understand where you're coming from. It does make sense, but I don't feel like charging for this type of thing because I'm sure I can make better, security on my own. So it's biased. I just think I'm all about, we can't live in a pure decentralized world. Like, I don't believe in that. It's impossible. You will need trust. But there's some things that are decentralized enough that don't require this kind of middleman. So I may be a bit opinionated on this one, but I'm not against it. It's just I personally wouldn't be a client for this type of services.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, fair enough. So I do want to bring Freak on before too long, but I love while we have you, Al, if you still have a few minutes to unpack some of the pros and cons of anonymity, because I do think it is really interesting, and I think there's a whole psychological element where you mentioned earlier, you have some real life friends, then you have kind of this like whole crypto part of your identity and they're kind of separate. I'm curious about like how you manage that, if there's like a social cost to that, if it's just tiresome, like is it worth it? Should everyone be anonymous, or is that actually not a good value prop for a lot of people out there?
Oh God, I'll try to resume it because it's so hard to. This could go on for an hour, type of thing. But basically, so it has a cost. It has a cost on many aspects of my life. But so first thing off, why do I decide to be anonymous? There's two reasons. I don't need people in real life to know who I am and to know what I look like and to know what is my net worth. All those things. This is private information that I will only share to friends. Very close friends, to family, to people who are already in the scene who I'm friends with. People like Freak I've known for many years. I don't speak to him that much about those things, but I could if I wanted to, because we're in the same mentality, same frame of mind. So that's one thing. And the second is, I don't want people in crypto to know what I look like. I don't need those people to know, okay, he's actually this guy in real life. They don't need to know this information as well. So it's a both ways. It's an air gap, a tight gate between, I don't want people in their real life to know who I am in the crypto world, because then they become incentivized to speak to me. And this is what I'm saying. This is a cause, because the most easy is about, imagine me trying to found a family and find a partner. I don't want the partner to just come to me and think, oh, he's got NFTs, he's got ETH, he's rich. That's kind of the cost that comes, where I can't share this information on the get-go usually. On the same side, I don't want people from the crypto to know who I am in real life, because then I become a target. I think I could become a target, especially since, the way I am, I support a lot of projects. I've been here for a while. I'm not as big as other people, but I have this fear, and, I don't want to put my family at risk, for example. So that's the two main things. But as you said, I still go to in real life events. I'm not living like a hermit. And so, but that's okay, because usually the people that you meet in those type of events are like-minded. They think the same way, and you can still keep minimal information out of those conversations. The only thing that they have about you is what you look like, but they don't really care. They're like, oh wow, it's insane that it's and I'm the same. I like to put a face on someone. Like it's always nice. Second time I see Freak here, I saw him once on Twitter. And it's nice. I didn't expect him to look like this, but if anything, I'm pleasantly surprised, because he looks like such a nice person. I would, love to have, a conversation and coffee or beer with him at some point, in my life. And so this is the cool thing about meeting people. You meet people still in a safe, space. But again, though, the people that are hiding behind screens that you don't know, they don't need to know who you are, what you look like, where you think they live, and everything, because this is where the things become very dangerous. When there is money involved, the stakes, people are ready to do anything really, and it is scary. So that's one of the reasons. Going back to and last thing I want to show is there's been a lot of debates on should Anon teams be doxed, should revealed, and everything. It's like, no, they shouldn't. But the ideal thing is that there should be someone that is okay to already be doxed. I'm with YGG. And it works really well because both Gabby and Beryl are doxed, so there is this legitimacy that comes into place. Mm-hmm. And because I never wanted to, they're okay with it, I can remain anonymous, because at the end of the day, I don't want, and it's just like politics, I don't feel like politics should be all about faces and being able to express yourself better. It's all about the ideas and being able to, I don't think I'm hiding behind my avatar, but I'm definitely using it as a medium to express my ideas and share, my thoughts and what I can build in this space. And I feel like it's a better way to, use OWL as an intermediate of all those ideas than using who I really look like and all those things, because those would taint or bias people a bit more. So trying to keep this in the minimum, but those are like kind of the main reasons.
No, I mean, I think that last point you hit on is really powerful, where sometimes it can allow you to do things that would be harder if you weren't anonymous, and coming from the Dota space, like the lead Dota developer, IceFrog, is still mostly anonymous, at least publicly. And as a game developer, where there's all this pressure from all these different parties to change things in different ways, it does allow you to interface with the community a little bit differently than when it's like you as a person and your face out there, and you change something people don't like and you get death threats, and it's just a different beast. Dave, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this anon versus non-anon dialogue here.
No, I find it fascinating. To me, I guess when I entered this, it wasn't even like a question. Like, should I stay anonymous? Like, at some point I would have doxed myself, gone to a public event and not cared. My question is only because I've heard it from someone else recently. Do you have multiple accounts? Like, do you have Owl in one space, but you have a second Twitter or a second Discord, or are you multi-accounting?
Are you another animal? Are you elephant of dryness somewhere in another Discord?
Actually, I went to the London Axie meetup, and I didn't come as Owl. I did say I was Owl in the thing, but I did come up as Dry Eagle.
Okay.
So
kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I will have other accounts in other things, but when it comes to social media, I only use Owl of Moistness. But when it comes to accounts on GitHub or Etherscan, all those things, I will have other accounts because it's sometimes easier overall. So yes.
Awesome. That makes sense.
No, I don't have any other Discord accounts. I do have one just for testing purposes, but I never use it. If you ever see it, it's called Algorithmic Fractal. But yeah, you never saw it, so.
Gotcha. Amazing. Al, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this with us. This was so fascinating, a lot to unpack, and I think just really great perspective for a lot of the Axie trainers out there. I think a lot of them probably aren't familiar with your robust history, but I know you've contributed a lot to Axie, especially in the early days with like Origin Axies and that kind of stuff. I think you helped work on some of the tokens and things like that. So before my time, but I've heard the rumors of your greatness. So certainly appreciate your contributions. And yeah, it's a pleasure to chat with you now. This has been amazing.
Likewise,
thanks,
been a
Al.
pleasure. And have a good one, guys. And I'll need to go, so I'm really sorry. I would love to hear Freak, but I'll listen to the recording. Thanks again for having me. Have a great one, everyone. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, take care. All right. Wow. Hearing from Axie Legends today, Dave. I think that's kind of the summary of this episode, at least so far.
I'm immediately creating an Anon Twitter and Discord, so
Yeah.
good luck. I'm just gonna play around with it. Like, why not? Like, I'm just gonna see what it's like. It just has never crossed my mind. But I've heard some others talk about it recently too. I actually had a guy that was in my Discord. He just was like, yeah, I have several other, like, I'm not doxxed, but he's like, I have several other Twitters and Discords. He's like, I think everyone does. Like, and I was like, really? And so we had a really good conversation. So it was great to hear Al's perspective too.
Again, with the Dota 2 anecdotes, that was the same thing for me back in the day when Reddit was like the main thing for caster feedback. Every single other caster had like 5 Reddit accounts, and a lot of the arguing was like people trying to FUD each other but pretending that they're normal users. And when someone said this to me the first time, they're like, wait, you only have one Reddit account? You literally only post on your main? I'm like, yeah, why the what? That's actually insane that all of you have these Anon accounts that you're arguing with, and you all know that it's all of each other on your Anon accounts, and you're still doing it. Blew my mind, dude. Totally blew my mind that was just like normal for folks out there. But anyway, I digress. Back to the Axie stuff. Let's bring our closer on. Freak, thank you so much for being here. This one I've also been looking forward to. How are you? Welcome to Axie Fireside.
Good. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's certainly our pleasure. Any thoughts so far? I think going last on these is always the hardest because everyone's taken the low-hanging fruit of like security advice. So now it's on you to come up with some really big brain, mind-blowing stuff we haven't talked about yet. But any reactions to the hour and 10 minutes of dialogue we've had so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, I could talk about security forever. I've been in the security industry for over 20 years now. I'm pretty old now. So, I mean, I've been doing code audits, penetration testing, reverse engineering. Basically, companies used to hire us to find bugs and vulnerabilities in their products and their websites and things like that. So my background is security, and I can talk about this for a really long time. But I think one of like the underlying themes in crypto security and one of the main reasons why people get hacked is really the users, right? The users are the weakest link. I mean, you can have antivirus, you can have hardware wallets, you can have the best security in the world. But if you get social engineered, tricked into doing something, all that security goes out the door, right? So I think we kind of covered this in that you kind of make the worst decisions when you're in a panic. So
yeah,
just try not to make decisions out of fear or some kind of urgency.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's the
take
FOMO.
A little bit of time
because I think one of these, right, like a trap that I've seen, like these, maybe it's not a fake mint, but it's a mint that gives permissions to all sorts of other things. So like they set some sort of a, hey, there's only 100 of these, you have to mint really quickly, and it's like a race to click on it, and you don't even read what's popped up on your Trezor or in the transaction box, and it's actually like, you know, asking for permission for all of your OpenSea assets or asking for unlimited access to like one of your tokens, then it's going to drain your accounts. So that's, I think, kind of what you mean by like sometimes the users are their own worst enemies of like the scam here was you clicking the mint button. You know, you it's
Right.
maybe self-inflicted is not the right word, but I think you know kind of what I mean, where it's like your own judgment that is like the big blocker in those snap moments where you don't want to get left behind. Because even legit mints are like that. Sometimes it's a 30-second window to get your transaction in, or you miss it. So there are legitimate moments where that sense of urgency is very real, and I think sometimes that's what makes it hard to separate, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've fallen prey to that almost many times in OpenSea when there's an NFT drop. You're clicking through OpenSea and then you're trying to find the best deal, and there's a bundle for sale, and that's a pretty common scam on OpenSea where they bundle fake assets with the real asset, and you decide, oh, you see a bundle and there's like 3 or 4 of those NFTs that you want, but actually it's just one, and then the other ones are fake things. But you're trying to get the best deal, and then you just go through and click through blindly trying to get it like in the right amount of time, right? So
down that rabbit hole, could you shed any light on, I've heard people mostly on Twitter talk about these like gifted NFTs, where I know that there's fake like clone projects out there where they're just trying to like trick you, and it's not a technical scam, it's just oh crap, I just bought like a fake unicorn instead of the actual unicorn I wanted or something. But there are these others where you get airdropped an NFT, and then interacting with it can somehow be a vulnerability. Like the recommended is just hide it from your profile, pretend it's not there, just don't touch it. What's the deal with those?
yeah, I've heard of things like that. Owl would probably know a little bit better because he actually knows how the smart contracts work pretty in depth. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty wary about clicking approve on something, right? Like when you have to transfer an asset, you essentially, the first step you go through is essentially approving a website to allow you to transfer that asset, whether it's a ERC20 or ERC 721, right?
Mm-hmm.
So NFTs or tokens. Just be very wary about that approval process. Like the approval button, like the approval function within the contract could do other things than just approve. So if you could be allowing a smart contract to do something else that you don't really think that it's gonna do. So if you get like free stuff, I would just kind of stay away from it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it. Like as a security veteran, that's kind of how I handle myself. It's like, first of all, being an early adopter of technology, that's nice, and you get convenience out of a lot of these things, but using new technology opens you up to security faults, right? Like most of the time, cutting edge products are hastily developed and they have security vulnerabilities. They haven't been well vetted in terms of security, so they will have a lot of security problems. So being a security person, you're kind of like a Luddite. You like technology, but you don't really use it. So, I mean, the safest computer, the most secure computer is one that's basically shut off, not connected to the internet, right? Like air-gapped computers.
Well, so how do you feel about open source then? Because I remember, like, I have a minor in computer science, so I'm like a programming baby. I always like loved it as a kid. I fantasized about it, but then I discovered business, and it was a little bit more interesting and kind of fast-moving. So, I remember thinking in like university, oh my gosh, open source is the future. Why would you want to write code for profit when you could just contribute to the greater good? And then at some point, someone pulled me aside and was like, you know, dude, not everything can be open source because some things are really important. And just by putting the nuts and bolts out there, you're making it more vulnerable to, you know, bad actors that know what to do with that information. Thoughts about that as it relates to the Web3 world? Because transparency is awesome, but it does generally come at a security risk, right?
Right. So there's pluses and minuses to open source. So one argument for security with open source is that it's out there. The code is out there. Anyone can take a look at it. So you potentially have many eyes looking at it, and a lot of people doing security audits on it. On the other hand, you have a lot of malicious people looking at it too, right? So the code is out there for someone to find bugs, and they may not share those bugs, right? Hope, like, it's your hope that you have people that are acting in good faith and reporting those bugs, but that's not always the case. But if you have closed source stuff, a lot of people argue that, well, that's just security through obscurity. If you have a good reverse engineer, they can still see what the code is doing. It just takes them a little bit longer. And if you're relying on that layer of obfuscation for security, that's really not sufficient. You have to do more than that. So, I mean, you can get argument that closed source is a little bit more secure, but you can't rely on that. That can be a layer, but it shouldn't be your foundation, I would say.
That's a good perspective.
Right. So, like, the tools that I've developed are all open source. I've developed that Chrome extension, right? Honestly, if I had seen a Chrome extension for Axie, I wouldn't install it if it wasn't my own, right? So, like, browser extensions are extremely dangerous. They can see basically whatever's on your screen. I
think I've got a couple extensions to uninstall real quick. Hearing you say that in real time, that's scary. I mean, I am generally scared. Just like, it's so close to the MetaMask, right? It's like it's right next to it. It feels like it's in that same sandbox, and that scares me. But it's like I knew that was true, but hearing you say that scares me even more. Of like the 3 extensions I have installed, like this one that tells me what the gas price on Ethereum is. Yeah, that's what I see that it does. What else is it doing under the hood? Like that. That's the shit you really got to think about, right?
Right. Like, if the extension can see what's on your screen, you got to think, well, would you be comfortable letting someone shoulder surf you with? Like what if you had like a stranger walk by behind you and they were looking at your screen? Would you be comfortable showing them what was on your screen if there's private information there? And even from like a technical level, if you're logged into a website, like, there's cookies and things like that, right? So, and those cookies essentially they authenticate you, right, and authorize you to do certain things on the website. If an extension has access to those cookies, basically they can do whatever you want, or do whatever they want as you on that website. So they're logged in as you. They can steal your session. It's session hijacking, essentially. That's the fancy term for it. I think probably there's been some in the Axie Discord. I think some people were hacked because they shared their screen with the malicious user. Essentially, what's happening there is, like, an attacker, if they can see your cookies in your browser, they can take that and steal that and hijack your session, and they're logged in as you onto that website. So, like, these extensions are really powerful. If they can see your screen or your web traffic, they can basically take over everything what you're doing.
Wow. All right, so this is a weird question that I don't know if you have a really great answer to, but someone asked me this and I was stumped. They said, okay, so is that freak extension made by Sky Mavis? No. Okay, how do I know it's safe? You tell me everybody uses it, but you didn't make it. How do we know that it's safe? And I was like, well, I know it's open source, but how do I know that it's safe? Because a lot of people I trust told me it's safe. And if I didn't have that friend network, or I didn't know Jiho who could say, like, oh yeah, I know that freak guy, like, that's, how do you know when things are safe from a third party? Like you said earlier, you don't use stuff that you don't write yourself. Is that totally true? Or are you just like, nope, I don't trust any extensions?
Of course not.
Like, how do you?
Of course you have to use. You can't write everything. You can't write your operating system from scratch. With my tools, though, like, I tend to compartmentalize them. With a lot of modern programming languages, you actually use a lot of third-party libraries. You basically use code from other people. I try to minimize that set, and all of that stuff is in my code repo, so you can look at it. But it's actually pretty scary how the modern coding frameworks work. It's basically you're using third-party libraries from who knows where. And there's this long chain of dependencies, and if any one of those get compromised, like, your project can get compromised. So it's pretty scary in terms of what happens there. But I mean, so for my tools, they're in GitHub, they're open source. If you have the technical capability, you can review the code. And I think you started off the show asking if there were any alternatives to my tool. Well, there is actually a fork of mine. Explorer created a fork of my tool, so there is another option out there. It's supposedly more performant. He uses his own little web server in terms to get like data and things like that, so it's faster.
Okay.
But I know there's some people that follow me on GitHub, so whenever I check in some code, they kind of know that they may even review the code, what have you. But Google also reviews code, and they're trying to weed out any kind of malicious extensions. What they've been trying to do lately is if your extension executes code dynamically, essentially like if a developer can update the extension without passing an update through Google, they try to disable it. Google has been trying to disable that kind of code functionality. So it's kind of dangerous when an application can update itself, right? Like it'll execute arbitrary code on behalf of the developer without actually having gone through Google. That's a pretty dangerous thing.
I mean, that's why you can't edit tweets. To take a real layman's analogy there, is because once you tweet something, it gets 100 retweets. If I then edit it to add a not in there, all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, wait, why did Freak retweet that thing that's the opposite of what I thought he stood for? It gets really hinky really quick. That's a social version of that, but I think a similar sort of thing. Like, you know what you sign up for at the beginning. Back in the day, we used to buy software with discs, you see. So you knew exactly what you were getting, and it couldn't just very easily, download updates from the internet. Boy, how things have changed.
So how do we, Freak, I want to know from your perspective, because here's my, I don't want to call it an annoyance, but I'm going to call it an annoyance because I feel like there's a lot of tech, and there's a lot of really smart people out there making seemingly good things. And I'll clarify real quick. How I got hacked is I used what was AnySwap, ended up becoming multi-chain. They got hacked because I had put the permissions in there to move WETH. When I had then listed a decently expensive NFT on LooksRare, someone then bought that NFT, and then since they knew it, they purchased it. They then transferred it out immediately after because they had the access to the WETH contract of multi-chain in the hack. That felt like something too where I didn't really do anything wrong. The company that I trusted, I guess, or I left my permissions up, did something wrong. I want to be more proactive, especially around permissions. Do you have any tips, tricks, or like advice, I guess, as to how? Because I want to use the technology. I want to bridge stuff. We're trying to be a worldly thing, but if I'm stuck on ETH, I'm not really a worldly citizen. I'm just stuck in one mainnet, or I have to keep going down to centralized exchanges to move stuff around.
That's a tricky one. There are websites that actually tell you which contracts you have approved to allow access to what assets and things like that. But it really comes down to a matter of convenience versus security. So potentially what you can do is if you want to do something, if you want to transfer an asset, you can approve it, allow that contract to use it, and then after you're done doing that, you can unapprove it. But you got to figure out how to do that. That's not real easy, and it costs money to do that. So
okay, that's
what I thought. You want to be super secure.
So how do you unapprove though? Is it really different? Is it like different for everything that you connect to? Because like, so if you look at your MetaMask and it's like, hey, I'm connected to these sites. If you click unconnect, does that do anything? Does that remove permissions? No. Okay.
That connect button actually doesn't do much, and a lot of people are worried about actually connecting their MetaMask to a website. In terms of spending your funds, that doesn't really do much. What it could do is it's like a privacy leak, essentially. The reason why that button is in there is that a website that is Web3 enabled, they can query your MetaMask to see what your account is, what your address is. So that button was there to prevent websites from just automatically finding out what your address is. But they can't spend the money.
Right.
So that
signing's
feature
highly
is more
limited
of a privacy mechanism
in that regard. Okay.
Right.
So, but to actually remove the permissions, so is there like a go-to tool to do that? Like, how do I do that?
So,
yeah.
So if you know the contract that you've approved, that is approving the transfer, you can go to that address on Etherscan and then view the code and then connect there and then call the function and unapprove there. That's the way that I would know how to do it.
Wow.
It's really uncommon for a website to actually provide that feature out of the box.
Wow, and there's no work. Is there like a third-party tool that can kind of do that for us, or are people building that? I guess because it's needed.
So there are like those websites I mentioned that tell you which contracts you have approved. Those generally actually give you an easy way to unapprove those contracts. It's like it's probably a button that you press there, but then you got to go through individually to click on each to unapprove each contract. So it can be tedious, but and again, it costs money to do that. So,
but
not
maybe
cheap.
worth it depending on what you're into. You know, like some of these DeFi protocols, like the one that Mark Cuban got into. You know, stuff like that. That token goes to zero, but most people just kind of forget about it and move on. And there's still some contract connected to your wallet that has access to do something because you were allowing it to move tokens in and out of your wallet to be able to use the protocol. So like that's the kind of lingering stuff that my brain goes to of like, what has permission that I didn't even remember I gave it permission to do? That's a really scary thought, man.
Right. And a lot of these DeFi protocols, they ask you for permission to transfer an unlimited amount of tokens. They don't actually have to do that. They can say approve a transfer of 10 tokens. And that's it. And once those 10 tokens have been transferred, they're not allowed to do anything else. But that's actually kind of a bad user experience because the next time you use the website, you have to submit another approval.
It's more gas.
Yeah,
but,
that happened to me.
Yeah, it's more gas essentially.
Got me.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Shit. Now I'm getting
Yeah,
scared,
so
dude. It's a
security
scary
is
world out
basically,
there.
It's a trade-off between convenience and security. So most people, they want convenience and they're willing to give up some security for that.
Freak, I wanted to ask you because someone had kind of brought it up. Have you seen the new where people are changing the colors of their fonts on their names in Axie?
No. What's going on?
So they're
there?
basically like, they're basically like you're just pulling the generic color in from the kind of color graph, and it can change the words, the color of the words they're actually put for their name and title on their banner.
Is it like you put
And then
HTML in your name? It's kind of like in Dota, you could change the font of your username by putting like HTML tags in there. And once people discovered that, I think it's a similar sort of thing.
So I have heard about this a little bit.
Is there any? Is that? Do you see that, or do you see anything else from this, from the Ronin or just even Axie side that you see any potential security flaws or like concerns that we should be watching out for in the future?
There's a serious problem with this type of vulnerability. They call it cross-site scripting. So the ability to inject HTML, JavaScript more so into a website. I think the thing that you're talking about though is actually referring to the app. So like the either mobile app or the desktop app. And what I've heard is that actually it won't execute JavaScript in there, so it's safer, but you might be able to change how things look, like with the colors. It can be dangerous too if you can change the way something is rendered on someone's screen. For example, if you could like change like the login prompt on a website, for example, you could potentially have that login form submit your credentials to a malicious website. But yeah, this problem is more dangerous on websites where hackers could inject JavaScript and execute arbitrary code, and then they can essentially hijack your session, like we were talking about before, take over, steal your information, do whatever they can do as if they were logged in as you. Right. Actually, it's interesting. I have an alt account in Axie. I got several, but one of them actually it's named with these kind of funny characters in it, and it's named that way to kind of detect these problems where if you're rendering that name in incorrectly, insecurely on a website, it'll kind of change how the website will look. So it's always interesting to see how like tools like Discord bots and things like that render that name.
Wow.
If it renders it incorrectly or it's missing characters, then there might be a security vulnerability there.
Are you fruit salad guy?
No.
Or whatever. I don't know what people are calling him, but the guy that has the 3 fruit emojis.
The fruit guy.
Yeah, I've seen them.
100.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Maybe what was the other one? Like losers below this line? Something?
Noobs below this line. Yeah,
Noobs below the line.
That is a classic name. Yeah, that's good namesake. I do want to wrap this thing up before too long. Freak, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to bring up or things that have come to your attention from a security perspective, or even just things you want to complain about. Like I said, going last I think is always the hardest. So floor is kind of yours if there's anything we didn't cover that you feel like is worth mentioning here.
Yeah, I think just reiterating the social engineering aspect. When you're messaged by people, just verify that those messages are coming from legit sources. Don't just rely on the icon, the picture, the profile picture of the person that's messaging you. On Discord, check mutual servers, check mutual friends to make sure that those people that are messaging you are legit. Same thing on Twitter. Verify that that person has like a posting history. On the I think I wanted to mention on the Android side, right now the way you install the Sky Mavis app or the Axie Infinity app is by loading an APK, right? Loading APKs is powerful, but it's also really dangerous. Don't just load arbitrary APKs from other people. That's a great way for hackers to put malicious software onto your phone. That's a little kind of gripe that I have with how the app is distributed now. Obviously, it's in testing, and this is the way that you distribute the app, but it kind of promotes a little insecure behavior in that side-loading APK isn't the safest thing to do. So just be aware of that. Don't make it a habit of side-loading APKs unless you're getting them from a trusted source and you know exactly what that APK is doing.
Another layman analogy that triggers for me is like Google Forms are kind of similar, where like on the Sky Mavis side, we're really not using Google Forms that much anymore. We're using Typeform and various other services that allow it to be more customizable, because so many people are using Google Forms to imitate like support or help desk or whatever else. And of course, there's a point in there where it's like, put your seed phrase in, and those things they look obvious once but it's not Google Forms' fault. Google Forms are Google Forms, but because it's so easy and accessible, it's a platform where a lot of scams take place. And I think we said it earlier, assume that it's fake unless verified otherwise. Don't trust first. Be skeptical first. And then once you have multiple layers of, oh, look, it was tweeted by Axie. Oh, look, it was in the Axie Discord. Oh, look, my friend is using all these different things can line up. You go, okay, maybe this is legitimate, Start with the skeptical lens. That's a good 101 trick, I think.
Right. Freak, I know it's a little off topic, but this is really my last question. With obviously the builders program and kind of, there's the illusion of like a content creator program coming out in the future. And you were kind of one of the original builders or semi-content creators in the space. Are you working on anything coming out in the future? Are you building more tools or doing anything else, either internally for other ecosystems or anything like that in Web3 NFTs?
So that has crossed my mind, but so my background, I have a computer science background, but I'm a security guy. I'm not a developer. So all those tools that I made were kind of for my benefit, to kind of help also grow the community. Because here's a short story though. When I started on ETH, I've been in cryptocurrency for a while, but I got into ETH when CryptoKitties came out, and we were playing CryptoKitties for a while, and then that community started to die down, and my realization was there's just not enough people in the space for those projects to kind of survive and sustain themselves. So I started making tools to kind of help broaden the community, to make it easier essentially for people to play, right? Like one of my philosophies for business is, if you want people to give you money, make it easy for them to give you money, right? Like accept cryptocurrency, accept PayPal, accept all these, whatever kind of payment people want to do to give you money, just allow it, right? There's no reason that you shouldn't allow that. So make it easy for people to do if you want more people to join your community, essentially, right? So I started making tools for that, but I'm not a developer by trade. So now there's millions of people in the Axie community, and their programming skills are much better than mine. So I've been contemplating what I want to do in this space, and contributing from a code perspective may not be what I want to do.
Sure.
Though I've benefited tremendously. So I may think about I'm trying to think about how I can basically spend my funds to kind of bootstrap project and that kind of thing. So that's crossed my mind. I'm pretty antisocial actually. So like one of the things I do to protect myself is not to communicate that much, right? So to kind of avoid those phishing scams and stuff like that. So I'm not that well connected to the community. So that's probably something that I should improve on a little bit. But just, I think going forward, looking for potential projects to invest in or start, that's what I'm kind of interested in. But to answer your question, I'm not applying right now. But,
sure. Well,
it's
Rick, if you need a front man, Ziori and I'm sure will be happy to help you. I mean, you're a legend to both of us. And I think I saw it. Did I see you when you stand up? Does your sweatshirt say "Freak" over a Nike swoosh?
Yeah, well, it's from Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? The Greek freak.
Oh my God,
So
what a sweatshirt to flex too. If we missed that and you were on this stream, I would have been so sad. I'm so happy to see that.
That's
epic.
so legit. No, that's perfect. That's amazing. Man, that's it's such a everything you said resonates so much, but one thing that really jumped out is it makes me sad that one of the best security practices is to kind of cut yourself off. Like limit social interaction. That's a great way to limit your chances of getting phished from a social side. And I totally get it. And that's just part of like all of us dealing with the human condition and being part of this crazy community that's called humanity. But man, that's a crazy juxtaposition. Is that where the name Freak comes from? It's just hoping that people would see you as this ghoulish shut in and just not want to engage? Is that the...
No, it's from the old days. Well, I grew up kind of like in the hacker sphere, like on IRC and things like that. And you just pick a handle back then. But this was like in high school, junior high, and everyone feels awkward like a freak back then. And that's where the name came from,
Nice. I like it.
That's great.
Well, it does kind of double. I do hear people say, sort of like Al said earlier, like, man, the first time I saw Freak, I was surprised. He was just a normal dude. I in my head, I had him built up to be this crazy, like... People think you're going to be some Matrix level hacker, like Neo's about to pop out, and I don't know. I don't know what the expectation is. You're going to have like a Raspberry Pi right there, and you're going to hack the AC system in the building or something, Mr. Robot style.
I have a Raspberry Pi on my desk, actually.
There you go. On brand. Man, Freak, this was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some insight with us. And thank you for making the tools that you have. I can definitely speak for a large part of the community that very useful, very helpful, and they made my experience much easier when I started. So sincerely, thank you very much for that. It's been amazing.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, and then there were two, Dave. It's down to you and me. I can't, we were really worried about this not being long enough, and here we are at the hour 40 mark, and we've got a great security fireside. Anything we didn't cover? Anything you need to get off your chest, bud? I feel like I talked a lot in this episode. Co-hosting is hard. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, Dave. You made it fun, made it easy. Great smile you got.
Yeah.
There.
Thank you. I try. It's no, I think everything was really good. There's not really a whole lot to call out other than I think links would be really helpful. So definitely we'll have to post some links. Don't be afraid to reach out and like verify if something's legit before you do something. Just tag some people on Twitter. I usually respond to most of the comments that are sent to me.
I try to. I don't get all of them, but when I get the like, was this you on Discord? If I see it, I tend to go, no, that is not me. I don't communicate like that.
Right. And you can also try to verify with other close connections. So if you see them respond to someone else, maybe that's a smaller following, because like obviously, someone like a Jeff or maybe even you, Ziori, might be harder to reach. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone and say, hey, is this legit? That's another maybe popular-ish content creator or face in the community that you recognize or you've spoken to once before. But I think it's across the board. We're all here trying to help, because the worst thing is like if you make a bad trade and you buy something dumb that's worth a lot less, it happens, or like if the whole market dumps, that you can't control that. But you just getting scammed because you click a bad link or you don't bookmark your websites, that's sort of like we want to be able to help that, so that because that's all preventable. And so don't let that happen. I can't help if you buy a bad NFT because you just follow the hype, but I can help you not click bad links and like talk to the right people, ideally.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a huge desire to try to remove some of the low-hanging fruit in terms of the scams and make sure that stuff it just doesn't catch people, and it is an arms race. So we'll continually be trying to echo some of this stuff, and I think based on feedback, even in this episode alone, try to do a better job of just continually retweeting and pushing out these like welcome links and like, hey, bookmark this. This is the page that will take you to all of the legitimate things that you need to find. We made the tools. Now we just have to share the tools, Dave. Ah, man. Step one. Now we got to take step two. All right. Well,
yes, and I am going anon, so try to find me. I don't know when. I don't know how.
Yeah,
I can't
me
obviously
too.
say my name, but
I'm gonna change my name. I'm gonna change my
in
face.
Discord and
I'm gonna go buy some suits and ties. You guys will never recognize me again. I don't know how I'm gonna change the voice. The voice profile is gonna be a hard one, but yeah, that's it's funny that the two doxed guys are over here interviewing these anon guys. Like, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. Nobody knows who you are. I'm a little jealous. No, this was a lot of fun. These firesides, of course, happening sort of at a different cadence. We're doing the Axie Tuesdays now every other Tuesday. These firesides kind of pop up when we have the right people, the right idea, and the right discussion. So please send us your feedback. Feel free in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, Facebook, wherever else. Happy to hear from you. And if you have ideas or topics for future firesides, feel free to send those our way as well. I try to read as much as I can of the barrage of information that comes our way on social media, but we'll certainly be looking to do another one of these in the future. Dave, keep fighting the good fight, buddy, and we'll certainly see you in the future here in the Axie universe.
Thank you, Ziori. Catch you later.